It's Adrienne Lawrence, and I am back at you. And this time we're talking about something near and dear to my heart. That's right, real estate. And we welcome in William Edwards, senior investing reporter, and Alcynna, Lloyd, an economy reporter. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so I know that there is a housing bubble that's on everyone's mind right now, and that the feds have kind of begun hiking up these interest rates. So before we dive into what is really going on here, I'd love a little bit of background for people who don't know, and kind of generally myself, because I think we just hear terms and think we know. But Alcynna, what is a housing bubble?
So a housing bubble is basically caused when there's a great imbalance in the real estate market between supply and demand, which is really what's fueling this housing bubble right now.
Yes, and so when that bubble, I'm assuming, kind of gets off balance, then we end up with that bubble bursting and people getting in trouble. And I'm sure people are wondering what is going on right now. And so I'd love to kind of dive into this issue. William, what's next really for the US housing bubble?
Yeah, that's the big question on everyone's mind right now. The Fed's raising rates a lot. They're expected to raise it by 2.5% this year. Several hikes ahead coming. So, yeah, a lot of people are concerned that this rise in mortgage rates that's going to result from the Fed hiking the Fed funds rate. That's going to really cut into people's monthly budgets for housing for their housing budgets. And yeah, it'll really sink home prices, or that's the concern at least. So.
Yeah, and I would definitely imagine that is something that a lot of people are fearful at. Now, Alcynna, what else are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing right now, while there is a housing bubble happening, that it might not burst. I talked to a few economists that say essentially home prices, although they are very high, that means that a lot of home buyers have a lot of equity right now. So we're not likely to see a foreclosure crisis or anything like that happening. People that do have a lot of value in their homes are probably just going to sell their properties. So whether the bubble bursts or not, we're yet to see.
Yes, I think we saw definitely during this pandemic that a lot of people being stuck at home, like me operating from a home studio now, they realized how important it is to have a home that you love and you deserve. And it seemed a lot of people ran out there on the market and bought homes, which was something that was a little bit scary in some places where I was living, like in LA, where there was very low inventory to begin with, and it caused prices to go up. Just to exorbitant rates, and then people were still paying over the value of even the property simply to have it, and they were doing cash deals and whatnot. To what extent is this playing a role in this thought that there's a potential housing bubble that's going to burst?
Well, essentially, it just talks to the type of competition that's in the market right now. Home buyers are competing for a limited amount of inventory, so that means cash offers they're very popular right now because home buyers recognize that there are people out there waiting to purchase these homes. So prices are going up and these buyers are paying more with cash.
Yeah, definitely something I've seen. And you, of course, sit here as me as a millennial wondering, geez, where do people get all this money from? But then don't get me started. But in terms of the other world events really impacting our potential housing bubble and having it explode, we have that going on right now in Europe with Putin's brigade really trying to make its way to seize Ukraine. And we're seeing a lot of things cause a ripple effect. Whether it's just individuals preparing for having less economic flexibility. Also, this thought with sanctions and how this will impact. We've seen things with the fuel services in terms of Europe and whatnot. William, how is this in terms of the Ukraine Putin war? How is this playing an impact when it comes to the housing bubble?
Yeah, we've seen energy prices really spike because of the war, and obviously this is causing inflation, throughout the economy. So that's also cutting into people's budgets for housing. Inflation's up 7.9% year over year. That's the highest in 40 years. So people are definitely, taking a hit in terms of their pocketbook. What's ironic about that a little bit is the Fed's hiking to fight off that inflation. But with them raising rates, that's also cutting into people's ability to afford houses with mortgage rates going up because of that. So it's really a double-edged sword here. Pretty interesting to see how it plays out in the next several months.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how it plays out, especially because we don't necessarily know where we're going, with this geopolitical conflict. But I do know that a lot of people, with their day-to-day lives, do look for housing, and especially because what we were seeing that kind of housing crisis come up, particularly post-pandemic, with a lot of people not necessarily having the income because they are out of jobs and struggling to that extent. And so when it comes to the housing bubble and things not necessarily being a buyer's market, but a renter's market, can you, Alcynna, can you speak in any way about how that is also impacting what we have?
Well, right now, housing affordability is everyone's concern, whether you're a home buyer or a renter. Prices are going up, and it's really, like we talked about inflation, it's costing a pretty penny in people's pocketbooks right now. I know the rental market itself, people are waiting to see prices drop, but that really won't happen until we do see more inventory in the market. So I know everybody's waiting to see builders make more homes so Americans can move into them and start their homeownership dreams.
Kind of strange too, considering that I know that we have a lot of homes that are just empty and not being used in the United States, because I know that's something I often come across in reporting when we're talking about the housing crisis, when we're looking at individuals who are unhoused. But still, even if it's a thought of building more, we do want to make sure that there is affordable housing out there. And so something needs to be done. Is there anything that the Biden administration is doing when it comes to talk of ensuring there's affordable housing, but also with the potential for a housing bubble burst? William?
Honestly, I don't cover the politics side of it too much, so I'm not sure honestly how the Biden administration is approaching it. To be honest, but Alcynna, if you have any background on it.
I know when the Biden administration, when they first came to term, I know one of their biggest missions was to make sure that the housing market was basically standing in a good position. They have enacted. I'm not necessarily sure if they've enacted any programs right now, but I know that they have launched initiatives to ensure that first-time home buyers are able to get into homes easier. I think it's first-time home buyer assistance programs as well too. But as far as bigger legislations to make sure that housing affordability is taking off, I'm not too sure if I've heard anything yet.
Yeah, well, hopefully it can be refocused. I know that Biden has been quote unquote distracted with Putin, the war on Ukraine and whatnot, but still I know that a number of things have to be tended to here in the United States that impact us. So having a good idea of how things are working with housing and economy, I think that that's extremely important. So hopefully there will be some effort to refocus, especially with the midterms coming up. But in terms of the housing bubble and the prices, so I know that medium home prices, that they've risen as much as 27% since spring of 2022, but also that these prices, they fell just a little bit for the first time in that fourth quarter of 2021. What should we read into this? What do you think this means?
Well, essentially what I'm hearing from The Economist or the experts that I speak to is home prices are expected to regulate eventually in 2022, because home prices have been going up, like you mentioned, but eventually sellers are going to realize that they don't have the money to pay for this home.
Yeah, definitely having people have that understanding is so incredibly important, especially and also people feeling that they still have access to have these things, because home ownership is also a big part of maybe being able to establish generational wealth. And so we know that has been something that's generally kept from various groups, particularly marginalized groups. And so being able to still be able to invest in home ownership and real estate, that is something that is a dream of a number of people. And hopefully that's something that can continue on for the future in terms of our society. And so if there's I think is particularly missing from this conversation when it comes to that housing bubble. William, is there anything that you think people need to know?
Yeah, I would say people need to look at the bigger picture here in terms of what's different between now and 2008 or the mid 2000s when the housing market crashed. A couple of major factors are very different. So, for example, 40% of people had adjustable rate mortgages back in the housing bubble over a decade ago. That's only down to 1% now. That's all the way down to 1% now. So there's a lot better buyer behavior. Second, there's way better credit standard. So it's way harder to get a mortgage than it was back in 2008. And third is supply is way lower than it was during the housing bubble previously. So I think we had about 12 months supply back in 2008, 2009, and now we're about 6 months supply. So supply is way lower than it was then. In terms of advice, UBS had a note out last week, just recommending that People focus on what they can afford in terms of a mortgage. Don't try to time the market per se. So they would just recommend sort of just looking at what you can afford in terms of your monthly housing payment and making a decision based on that.
All right then. And so, Alcynna, is there anything else that you would love to add to this conversation that you think people are missing?
What I would say essentially is, to second what William said, is this is not 2008. So people worried about a foreclosure crisis happening as prices rise, they don't need to worry about it. Not yet. So maybe it might change in a little while, but right now it's not 2008. Don't worry about it. Prices are rising, but housing affordability is a #1 concern for a lot of people right now. And there are people working towards making sure that Americans can afford housing.
Well, that is good, and that's very good to know, and especially because we definitely want people to not have that housing insecurity issue. As we know, it is tied to a number of things. As we just spoke to a gentleman who's an expert in gun violence and noted that as one of the kind of influencing factors. And so ensuring that everyone could have a home is such an important thing and something that we need to see more of happening here in the United States, given that we do have enough money, enough riches, enough housing to house everyone. So that is something that I hope we are moving toward as a society. But in the meantime, as these two experts have shared, do not worry, do not be fearful. This housing bubble is not going to burst a la in the past. But I guess in the meantime, if people are looking to follow more of your reporting and more of your expertise, where can they find you, William?
Yeah, just go to my author page. It's my name is William Edwards. So just Business Insider, William Edwards. My Twitter is actually hacked right now, so yeah, don't go there.
Yikes, good to know. And Alcynna, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can also find me on my author page as well, but I'm also on Twitter as Lloyd Alcynna.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, both of you, for joining us and also putting to rest some of the fears that we may have had. I know there are a lot of people out there who are wondering what the housing market's going to do, especially in such a tumultuous time with so much geopolitical conflict and all else. So thank you so much for settling any of those concerns. That's William Edwards, Senior Investigative Reporter, and Alcynna Lloyd, Economy Reporter. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.